3, 2, 1.
Hello!
And welcome to a Factory Floor Cut episode of the Vandal Factory podcast, which is a mouthful. Henry, what's a Factory Floor Cut?
Well, Natalie, in the normal episodes of the Vandal Factory podcast, we have loads of conversations and chats and provocations and poetry and music, and sometimes we can't fit everything in. So we like a bit of space. We can do long form interviews or conversations about a specific event or a specific organisation or with a specific person.
And this is a fantastic conversation that I had the pleasure of conducting with Scott Burrell, who's a director of a wonderful organisation called 3 Rivers. They're based in Bexley, London.
Whoa. So why did you this conversation is a bit different. It's a bit more deep and chewy and goes into more detail now. Why did you want to do that?
I'm so glad you asked, Henry. Regular listeners will know that I am knee-deep into a PhD.
She's wading through.
I am at York St John's University, and coming up to the end of my 4th year. It's to do with my creative practice as a theatre practitioner based in East Leeds. It's a practice-based PhD, which means the stuff I do as an art form, working with my community in specific places around where we live, that's my lab, if you like. That's the research going on. And now I'm at a stage where I'm putting my feelers out there to go, what other interesting people and companies are working in similar ways and who are excellent practitioners who would be good to talk to. And they feed into my research, and I get to share these gorgeous conversations with you.
So listeners, if this is the first time listening to the Vandal Factory podcast, maybe...
Good luck!
maybe there's other fuller episodes that have a load more like different zippier things to check out.
No, don't undersell me, Henry, as if this is boring. It's not boring. It's a really interesting chat where Scott talks about being the lead of an organisation that is a CPP. That stands for Creative People and Places. Henry, what is a CPP?
So it's a specifically funded organisation by the Arts Council, which is for areas with statistically low engagement in culture. Now, that is on paper, people don't tend to go to theatres or museums or art galleries, usually because there aren't any nearby, there aren't any art centres, but also because of other barriers like poverty and deprivation. And I used to work for a CPP as well, so I'm very well versed in all the things that Scott talks about.
Just to let everyone know, Henry knows loads about this too. Johnny, I worked for a CPP, and so I know loads about this.
I just feel left out.
Thank you, Henry, for your contribution. I love this chat, and we do talk about funding structures and why they can be problematic or why they can be really useful. We also have an excellent conversation about working in land, and really I loved what Scott has to say about how place in the creative people and places, they take the place as seriously as the creative bit and the people bit, and they talk about this amazing project that they have worked on where they've got a tump. Now, I hadn't heard of a tump before, but he says in the interview that it's size of 2 football fields and it'd been locked up since the war, and they magically got the keys and this whole thing had been rewilded and they opened the gates. I was picturing Jurassic Park when he was like describing it. It's amazing, and I love all the stuff that Scott talks about. So thank you to him for giving me your time. Also, listen up for, there's a classic Natism in this, isn't there, Hannes?
Yeah, a Natism is when Natalie's dyslexic brain mixes and merges well-known phrases, such as singing my song instead of you're singing my praises or you're speaking my language.
Go, you are singing my song.
Hallelujah.
So listen up for that. And we'll see you at the end for maybe some further reflections. Do let me know if you enjoyed this chat. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott Burrell, for meeting us this morning. You are the director of Three Rivers in Bexley. It just sounds, from a little bit that I've heard and the website, looks like an amazing project that's so interesting and joyful, and I'm all over it. So can you just start off by telling us like what's your origin story? Where did it all kick off?
Three Rivers is part of a national program that's supported by Arts Council England. So it's kind of, I think there's around 40 of these programs all over the country. There's a kind of slightly strange way they come about, but basically every county and borough in England is like ranked for participation in culture, which is a strange way of doing it, and it's defined as I don't know what you might call mainstream culture. Like how often are people going to their local museum, or how often are they going to the theatre? So, and then every place is ranked, and if you're in the bottom 100 places, you can apply to join this program. And in 2019, Bexley was eligible and is still eligible. So Bexley's a London borough in southeast London. So a group of sort of local organisations applied and got the money to start a kind of, yeah, it's like a community arts program. So the main thing is that everything sort of responds and is decided, and for us, like really made by people living, working, and studying in the borough. But like it is kind of a slightly problematic because it is quite strictly defined culture. So we try and expand that a bit more. So we're not ever saying that Bexley doesn't have any culture. It
Yeah.
has incredible culture. What it doesn't have is a lot of mainstream arts funding. It doesn't have a ton of theatres and galleries, and it's probably not had its fair share of sort of public money over the years. So this is a kind of way to maybe start to sort of remedy that.
Yeah, I love the way that on you were saying on your website it talks about how do we work, and it's really simply broken down into, we work with communities. I'm gonna paraphrase.
Yeah.
We respond to the land and to the place. And yeah, so the key part of how you're working is responding to what the community already has. And as you
Mhm.
say, not saying that you don't have any culture, but working with people of going, what what have we got? And then how can we contribute to that and make something more awesome happen?
I'm a kind of fan of like that kind of old school 70s, 80s community arts, which was always really traditionally being underfunded. And this is a program, it's a big national program, it's millions of pounds across the whole of England. So it was kind of amazing to see that happening. And it's been going probably like 10 years, over 10 years now. So we're kind of, yeah, we got the money in 2019 and then COVID hit. So we never really got started till 2021. But at the same time, you're starting something brand new from scratch. So it's not like it's already embedded. Uh, you have all the resources, but you're totally new in the area and no one trusts you. So something when I started is we kind of went and spoke to people and they were just like, look, we've heard the same old story, like you want us to help you and then you're gonna nick all our audience and data and participants and you've got the money. Like, why should we help you? And in Bexley, it we really started, and I think what is it, asset-based approach or something, it's kind of this trendy thing. But we just wanted to see what was there, and like I say, there isn't loads of art organisations, and kind of strangely, because it's Arts Council funded, is that like our whole remit is to work with people who aren't already engaged in the arts. So one of the things is tricky is if we were to work with arts organisations, well, anyone working with them is involved in the arts. So we kind of try to think a bit around that. And what Bexley does have is a load of like really small scale grassroots friends of groups, friends of parks, friends of the rivers. It has football teams. It has kind of a sort of like this kind of voluntary sector organizations, food banks, community centers, libraries. And we said, well, instead of kind of like us kind of extracting their participants and then doing some art with them and then, dropping them and giving them back, which is like, that can be done really well. Like maybe I'm not saying that's always bad, but we were like, what if instead we gave them the resources and they're like really deeply embedded and have this trust. And instead of us trying to like build that in a few months, is to say, actually, look, we'll just like try and support you. And actually, what if you guys did the art? Like, and we brought the artists into you and work with you, and actually, we'll support you to do, we'll work for you. The football
Yeah.
team, the community centre, food bank, we'll work for you guys as sort of curators, producers. But this will be like your art project
Mhm.
rather than you working for us as kind of engagement people, which is, I suppose, traditionally how I've done it for the last 10 years. So it was a bit of a switch for me. And that didn't come without its problems. So we sort of like developed a kind of training program. But what we said from the start is we'd always give at least 50%. And it's normally kind of more like 100% of the money to the groups. And that just switched it straight away. And they were like, okay, this has never happened before. Okay,
Yeah.
so you now hold the whole project budget. I can't force you to do anything. 50% could be for art, but we tried to recognize, COVID, cost of living, that just keeping these tiny organizations going was a cost. So we said
Mhm.
50% can be, to pay yourselves, for you to do training, to keep the building open, whatever you need to do it. And again, so we were trying to create this kind of, I don't know, ecology and connect
Yeah.
everyone, like sort of these organizations up through the cultural program, and also just like give them some resources, whether that was time, sort of art expertise or just some money. And through that, then they started, they learned to make their own murals and they put on festivals. And I think the thing for us is like, I think a lot of this program is trying to challenge this notion of quality that seems a big thing for funders, like artistic quality, and no one can kind of really define it. And
Mm.
obviously, if you're in a central London gallery, quality means something very different to what it means in Bexley. So for us, it was like the quality of experience, the quality of engagement, and the quality of the art is all the same. We're on the edge of London. We were managing to bring these award-winning artists to work with the local food bank in Erith to start doing projects together. So that's kind of like where it started. And then, yeah, I suppose we've been just trying to sort of like hone that model across the sort of last 5 years. And like, I mean, it goes wrong all of the time.
What struck me was and it's something I've experienced in my life. If you want community, it actually costs to
Yeah,
do that. You have to be financially free. And as a freelancer, I really feel it like the amount of things I'm expected to do with my time that isn't paid for is
hmm,
extortionate. And there's so much that I would love to do in my community that I can't because it's just not financially viable. And I'm like more
yeah.
middle class than the vast majority of the people that I'm surrounded by, but I'm feeling it. So how on earth can we expect everyone else to be turning up and getting involved in their community when
Yeah.
we're skin? It's
Yeah,
very simply put.
because I think for us it was like, and this is something I was experienced a lot. And sort of when I was growing up and trying to get into these things, it's just even if the art's free, I don't know, like free gallery theatre, there's still a cost to that. It's like your time, it's transport, it's a lot of people are working one, two, three jobs just get by over the last couple of years, and so it felt like. I suppose an example I heard, and this was from another project, is someone said to me, if we were middle class, you'd just give us free tickets to the theatre. But because we were like working class, you expect us to build that theatre ourselves and run it for free. And I
Ah,
think, and I get it because that's often in terms of social practice seems as an empowering, and it totally can be if it's
yeah,
resourced properly. Because otherwise, you're asking people to run their cinema for nothing and not get paid, whereas actually most people get paid for running a cinema. So it was just kind of acknowledging that, and that's not to say we're against volunteering or anything like that. But I think for us, it's like if people do need that support or want it, then it's there, and it also changes the dynamics. It's like they're not, they're now a colleague, they're being paid, and we don't pay, salaries, but we just tried to. So when I went to college because there was something called an educational maintenance allowance. God, this was back in like 2000, and it would like you got a little bit of money every day to get the bus and some food to go to like after you finish school at 16 to go to college. And so when we started, we thought, well, like how could that be? So we started something called the Creative Maintenance Allowance, which isn't a very snappy name, but just works on the same principle. If you work with us 3 times or more as a kind of co-creator, so not just coming to watch something, but actually inputting ideas, helping us make something, then we pay you London living wage, which is like 13.85. So we just like pay you for that. And that was kind of a bit controversial at the start. Definitely like not everybody thought, and still doesn't, that we should be paying people to work with us, because it's almost the implication is was community should be volunteering, it's for the good of everyone. But it just means like doing that, and we're in a really lucky position that we can kind of tailor projects to be able to sort of afford that, and we build it in. It just means like loads more people can take part, and people who wouldn't do normally do art say, oh, I'm just doing it for the money, and I say that's totally fine. Like I do my job for money. It's all right.
Yeah.
You don't have to have
Yeah.
some kind of creative calling. Just if loads of people do stuff that
Yeah.
they don't that into just for the money. So it has kind of opened it up a bit. But how we sustain that is like always tricky, because people don't want big chunks of money to pay community members in budgets, and funders are
Yeah.
sometimes a bit unsure about it. Like hang on a minute, are you kind of bribing people to take part? And like, yeah. So anyway,
Do you know what this is a tangent, but I was doing a workshop at a theatre, and there was some visiting creative engagement directors that had come from the National
Mhm.
to do a workshop for young directors and creative engagement up and coming Northerners. So
Yeah.
there we were, and we got onto a discussion about the difference between doing a workshop for free and a workshop where you charge 50p, or you say
Mhm.
pay what you can. And and I said, if it's 50p, I think people like do say, oh, it's worth something. Like
Mhm.
psychologically, they go, oh, this has value.
Mhm.
Compared to if it's free, they go, ah, it doesn't matter. It's not, and they don't turn up, or they don't value it as a thing.
Yeah.
And this person from the National um went on a rant about how that was Thatcher's way of thinking, and Thatcher has
Right.
taught us to only value things through financial gain, and that absolutely we should be doing everything for free, which I completely like. I get that big arts organizations like the National should be
No.
doing everything for free. But at the time, I had 40 quid in my bank account and
Mhm.
was being ranted at by someone who I'm going to go ahead and guess she didn't have 40 quid in her bank account.
Yeah.
And it's always stuck with me in terms of the kind of some hypocrisies that we can have around how do we value something,
Yeah.
and yeah, our relationship with money, and it can
Yeah.
we can get quite ideological about it in the arts, and ultimately it's about we just need it
Yeah.
to live. So can we
I
get
think that
over that?
idea of, yeah, in a perfect world, we'd value it in terms of in some other way, in terms of,
Hmm.
life fulfillment or being together or whatever. But I do think, yeah, there is some kind of sometimes a bit of a hypocrisy that like if you've got money, you can value things in money. But if you're a kind of community or you don't, you have to value it in some other way. I actually, because we, and for me, that's about sort of like gatekeeping those resources. Like often, and then we could be better at this, but you don't, you don't share budgets, you don't share the money bit. You do all of the other bits and you facilitate the other bits, and this is really good and the art and thing, but you don't share the sort of money. And I suppose another thing we've done is like we had 2 separate boards. So we had like a board with like local organizations and directors and stuff on who sort of scrutinized and set the program budget, and then we had a community board who just did kind of program. And I think that's quite again like a sort of embedded way of how these programs work. Like community members choose the art, and then you have a board of sort of important local people who sort of do the money and set my salary and all of
People
this.
who,
And
again,
actually, we
want to
talk
do
to
budgets in
community.
their spare time. That's who's on your big board.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's amazing and they're an amazing group of people. It's nothing about them. But we just talked to a community thing and they were like, yeah, making decisions about the program's great, but we kind of want to make decisions about the money as well. So we just brought those two together. and they see everything, and they set my salary, they can scrutinize finances and like conflicts. Like there's conflicts in all of this work, I think, around what's fair and what's not. Like a lot of things we've had is around like local community members challenging how much artists are paid. Whereas in our context, we're like, oh my God, artist pay is terrible. But we pay arts union rates, so they're like 350 a day. And if you're a person like using a food bank in Bexley, like why are they getting paid £350? And what they don't have is the context that like this might be
Yeah.
the one job they have this year. It's not every day they're working, it's not salaried. So a lot of it is trying to kind of translate these differences and say actually it's like you're sort of both in the same boat. Like,
Mm.
do you know what I mean?
In regards to like the actual practice it has been created, I was just struck by how much of it is um outdoors, connecting to nature. It's obviously you're responding to the three rivers. It's connecting to land and space and place. Um was that a purposeful decision or is that just what's occurred?
Yeah, I think that's kind of evolved. Like there was no kind of set plan. Like the program was really meant to sort of respond to what was in Bexley and the kind of issues that were at stake locally. Bexley is a place. It's kind of like it has London's only new town in Thamesmead, but it's quite fragmented. It's got like poor transport infrastructure. Part of it's post-industrial in the north, and then it's much more kind of leafy suburban in the south. It's the kind of last it's like wedged between Kent and London. So like half the people say they're from Kent and have Kent postcodes, half the people have sort of Southeast London postcodes. There's like a lot of sort of tensions and stuff in the geography of it. And I suppose like really honestly, yeah, I suppose playing on the name, we were like, well, for the first like 3 years, we're sort of going with the flow, like what's happening. We're sort of following the lead of these organizations, trying to figure out, and we did all sorts of things. Really, there was like, yeah, as I say, like festivals, murals, sculptures, radio shows, all sorts. But what we're finding is like there seemed to be like a real interest, both positive and negative, in the land, in the environment. As we were taking the program forward. Um, for example, like yeah, like Bexley. Yeah, it just has a lot of different kind of environments. It's on the Thames. And one thing we were trying to think is like kind of what connects people because it just didn't seem that much. It doesn't really have a lot of town, like it's got town centres, but they don't connect with each other. And what we figured was, so we work in 5 neighbourhoods across the north of the boroughs. They're all built on reclaimed marshland along the Thames. And we were like, well, physically, they're all on this same space. And then as I was saying, we were like meeting groups, and what we don't really start any of our own groups if there's already a group there. So again, like we don't want to compete against the people who've been there for years doing it. And what we found is like Bexley has like loads of friends of groups, which are kind of like you probably know, but they're like groups of volunteers who often look after a specific piece of land. So there's a Friends of Crossness Nature Reserve, there's a Friends of Franks Park, there's a Friends of Riverside Gardens, there's a Friends of Erith Marshes. There's these groups that like are really passionate about looking after a piece of land, and quite a lot of these things were under threat. From like industrial developments or whatever. So we just started to sort of tap into that and be like, look, we're not going to take a stance in terms of, like we're for or against this, but it seems everybody has an opinion. So some people like love their cars in Bexley. Some people want to save the nature reserve in Bexley. But what it did is it created an energy and a dialogue and sometimes a conflict where people like wanted to talk and get together. So that's how the programs really developed. And off the back of that, we started sort of looking at permacultural principles. We sort of started looking at how we could yeah, I suppose learn from the people who were already looking after this land and really think about it. And this is where the sort of programs going now in terms of sort of I suppose like yes, sort of helping set up new friends groups, supporting the sort of original ones, really following these kind of local struggles to protect certain parts of land. So that feels like really exciting to us because like yeah, I suppose the program's called Creative People and Places. It's a national program, but I think there is a massive emphasis on people because very much decision making, community, local. And for us, it's like well, actually, like let's take the place bit as seriously as the people bit, and think about the sort of non-human elements of it, the sort of politics of land, the sort of so all of that's coming together to make I think like a more like sort of more exciting program, hopefully.
Oh man, you are singing my song. That's not a phrase.
Mm,
Oh, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Oh Lord. Well, what am I going to say next? Let me focus my thoughts. We have a Seacroft Forest garden down our way that was just an abandoned bit of council land,
Oh wow.
6 foot high nettles, mattresses, buggies, all just, and we had to beg and scream and I say we, I mean really it's two people who live next door to it who are completely tenacious and did not want to give up and have doggedly got got ownership of that land, or well, got permission from the council to use that land, and all local people have transformed it into an amazing forest garden. It's now 4 years later, and this is like this tiny little haven of I don't know how many hundreds of different plants and trees and veg,
Mhm.
and all the excess veg goes to the community cafe, and it's a beautiful thing. But what permaculture, why I got so excited about it was because it links so well with how I want to work in the community, and how, again,
Mhm.
like I was just saying, local people and organizations are working in the community in terms of like observing what's already there first. Don't
Yeah.
do anything, just watch and work with nature. And the same with work with people, work with the place. And a sort of
Yeah.
it is ABCD asset based working. It's like, but with
Yeah.
plants instead of people. And I love it when you have two different things in different fields that are sort of talking
Yeah.
together and working really nicely. Have
Yeah.
you got one project in particular that's a good example of well, it doesn't have to be a good example, it could be a bad example, a challenging example of local people taking over a patch of land?
Yeah, I mean it's all of those examples. It's up and down and a bit sideways and good and bad. So we have in Southeast London I think they're unique to us, but in Thamesmead, which is the kind of a part of Bexley in the north, it was kind of built next to the Royal Woolwich Arsenal. So there's these things called tumps, which are Victorian kind of ammunition dumps. So they're like about the size of two football fields, with a sort of 10-foot round brick wall around them. And in the sort of, from 1860 to 1960, there was like a load of dynamite and stuff put on them out in the marshes because there was nothing built. So then in the sort of 60s, Thamesmead's built around these things, and most of them get destroyed, and one of them was being turned into a nature reserve. And then we'd heard rumours that there was another one, and we sort of found it at the end of this street. So it's in a cul-de-sac in a part of Thamesmead that like not loads happens. It's away from the train station. It's literally like down a cul-de-sac. So then you go, and it's like a secret garden when we found it. So there's a canal, and then a little bridge, and you go, and then these big wrought iron gates, and then this tump, and it's called Tump 39.
Which
We
sounds like
yeah,
a theatre company name.
yeah, yeah. But we were like amazed, and we're like, okay, wow, this is amazing. And we started like looking into it, and we talked to some people who lived on the street, and they'd almost like forgot it was there. And they said, like, look, it's been closed for like 20 years. Like, I think I can remember going in as a kid or whatever, but like, yeah, it's just been closed for ages. So it's sort of forgot about this thing at the end of their street. And like I should say, so like the way we're set up is like we're like a program. So as part of the funding, we can't become like an independent charity or anything. So we're hosted by a local organization, and the organization that hosts us is Peabody, which is like London's biggest housing association. And like housing in London is like incredibly like difficult and tricky and conflicted. So like they've been super supportive of us, but like there is people who don't like what they're doing. But basically we found out that they owned it. So they are sort of like rebuilding Thamesmead. And as part of that, the council sort of gave them the land to build the houses and stuff, but they got this tomp, so they just had the keys for it. So we were like, well, can we open it? So we opened it in like summer 2023, and we worked with some really brilliant artists called Blank Skiol. And we sort of like a bit like what you're saying about the permacultures, like we would just open the door, we flyed all of the streets around it and say, like, look, we're just gonna come in and listen and have a look what's here. We got about 50 people came and just started talking to us about it, like either I've never been in and always wanted to know, or there was teenagers say, yeah, I sneak in here all the time, or there was people like sort of could remember it. And so across that summer, we did like a program which really was about this kind of like sort of free play and deep listening. So you could come in, we made instruments, we sort of did processions, we sort of did hydrophones and just sort of listened to the space and was like, okay, well, what might this be? But not really in the to try and I don't know change it too much. So it's totally rewilded. It's like it was sort of like a jungle in there. So all we did was cut some paths in, and then that whole summer, yeah, we just spent some time and listened to it. And then since then, we've sort of developed a program that really is based on these kind of permaculture principles. So we've had some artists in residence there. But the big thing we've done is we've created a new friends group. So it's one of the only groups we've ever created because there wasn't one. So now we have a Friends of Tump 39, which is about 40 people who meet regularly and sort of decide what they want to do with it. And so we really got that off the ground. And as part of that, Peabody have sort of helped us manage the site, and in kind they've sort of supported us with gardeners and tree surgeons and things to make this site safe and so people can use it. And then just earlier this year, we managed to sign off that the people in the friends group can now just access it themselves. So we've taken the lock off and we've put a code and they can just get in whenever they want. So it's these small steps, but we opened it, but it was very much run by us and people could only access it when we were there. This year it's now open and people can use it whenever they want. Um, and then the next thing we're doing is we sort of like teamed up with something called the Zoonomic Institute. I'm probably not saying that right. In the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, and they have again a kind of process, and you can become a zoop. So they've created this framework for maybe how you be in a space. It's very much those kind of permacultural principles. It's like listening, reflecting, like together. But as part of it, the thing we were really interested is you have a speaker for the living, which is a person, a local person with some knowledge of the space that is going to become this SOAP. And they are independently paid through the institute, and they go to the Netherlands and get trained. But then they also join our board, and they speak on behalf of like the non-human, sorry, beings in the Tomp. So the next step is to really start reshaping our board. So in September, a local artist, Callum F. Kerr, will travel to Rotterdam. He'll become a speaker for the living, join this European network. So there's quite a few of these things in the Netherlands, but also in Slovenia and Germany. And then he'll join our board, and everything we'll do, he'll speak on behalf of like the non-human entities that are part of our communities. So it kind of sounds a bit hippie maybe and a bit like whatever, but we're kind of really keen to put like some kind of governance structure in where we're aware it's still a human talking on behalf of, I don't know, foxes and squirrels, but it's just another independent voice saying, okay, you want to do a festival in the Tomp, but it's actually really good making loads of noise in here because you're going to disturb this. It's just another sort of sense check
Mm.
of someone who kind of knows about that stuff. So this is this long-term process of not really turning the Tomp into anything, but like how we think about it. Like, so it's still totally rewilded and it's got some paths and nothing else in. Um, but it's creating the conditions for this us and the community and our new board all to think about the Tomp and also the wider program in a slightly different way where it's not about over programming it or audience numbers, but it's really like how we think about maybe community, like as not just people, but as also land, as also non-human living beings, and start to try and like take that across the whole program.
Fantastic. And it's a way of taking the principle of like decentering the human, and that can be how do we do that in a creative,
Mhm.
participatory way that's really just an individual level, but how do we go the next step and take it into governance and
Yeah.
really systematically start thinking about the impact on our environment and how we can tread more lightly.
I mean, we talk about it a lot in this kind of work co-creation, but it's normally between people, but like it always involves a place or a site. And I think often they're seen as almost like a stage. You know, you might be working within a piece of land, but it's like you're like on it doing something, and it's kind
Mm.
of a background, it's a prop, it's a stage. And I think this just allows us to think, just listen a bit harder
It's a
to like
partner.
actually let's start with the land and then and what's already there, and then that needs to kind of be co-created with that in mind. You know, so like it's really changing the way we're kind of the actual artistic output, I suppose, is changing.
Yeah. So your artistic output is changing as a result of truly paying attention to your surroundings.
Yeah, just like a lot of artists like really interested in working in this way, like um maybe moving beyond that workshop model, much sort of like spending time together, listening, low impact, really thinking about the kind of space they're in with the community. So we've been really lucky to like sort of work with some really amazing artists who kind of we're learning from as well of how you do this. Like I'm definitely not an expert. You know, I'd never, yeah, even said the word permaculture before I started at Three Rivers. It's not like my background, but really out of how the community are like thinking about where they live. That's sort of where it's come from, and sort of responding to that and being like, oh, okay, you kind of have this space on your doorstep that you can't access. Well, I think we can probably open that. And then what do you want to do? Oh, okay, like, yeah, they don't want to turn it into a outdoor theater or something. They just want to sit and be in it and have a picnic and take their kids to run around. We're like, okay, can that be an artistic practice, sharing time together? And so that might be a walk or a party or a communal meal or something else, but there's still this kind of creative act of making that and deciding that together. So yeah, it
Brilliant.
feels like a nice thing.
You should write my PhD. Be- You've
I
got
know I
it.
should
You've
just
got
read
it
your
down.
PhD and then yeah, yeah, and then
Nah,
I'll be
you already
better at
know
this.
it. It's fine.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that chat, Natalie. I've learned so much, so thank you for bringing it to me and the listeners' ears.
You're so welcome. I really enjoyed having that conversation with Scott. Thank you very much for your time. I think what I will be taking away from that, well, lots, but the thing as a practitioner that really struck me is the idea of paying participants. And I loved it when he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I work for pay as well." Like that idea is great. And I'm sort of kicking myself because I've just successfully received some awesome funding, and now I think, damn, I should have put more money for me and more money for the participants. But hey ho, never mind. We live and learn.
More money for everyone. There's an idea. Yeah. Maybe we could take that to Arts Council.
But I think it really challenges the idea of volunteerism, which I'm always find quite uncomfortable and sticky these days anyway, in today's current climate. So ways in which you can directly challenge that, I think, is awesome. And then also I loved, and I don't know if you could hear my little like brain making connections left, right and centre, but when we started thinking about the principles of permaculture being to observe first and to deeply pay attention before you do anything. And then also connecting that to principles of working in communities with human beings. In this area, certainly, in our area, certainly loads of the community groups that we work with work on the principle of ABCD, which means asset-based community development. So you look at what's strong in the community and you focus on that and you lift that up. And strong, not wrong. So you're not looking to correct bad behaviour, you're looking to encourage the behaviour and provide further opportunity for the good stuff. And I think there's some kind of connection to be made here, and I'm not sure what it is yet, but maybe there's a chapter in the old thesis that's called Putting the Culture in Permaculture.
I was really struck he talked about listening a lot, and like literally listening to Tomp 39, like just going and hearing what's in the space. And also your conversation with David Haley, which you can go listen to, also talks about listening and listening to people, but also listening to nature and listening to what the wood wants. And that was really curious about listening. It doesn't mean you're not active, because sometimes you can listen and you also need to be doing and creating and joining the dots. But yeah, that felt really interesting. Cool. Well, I hope Nat's brain is firing away and buzzing as she scribbles through her PhD. And listeners, if you've got any suggestions for Nat, if you're like, hey, there's this company doing great work, or this artist that's doing fantastic stuff in place-based and environmental and permaculture and all these lovely buzzwords, you can get in touch with us, vandalfactorytheatre@gmail.com, or hit us up on social media.
Yeah, I would really love to hear from people. So do please reach out. If there's any connections or questions you have, I can't tell you how helpful and appreciative I would be. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Take care. I love you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.